All right before we went live here in today's episode of Fireball with Gazebo, Vince said, please stop. No, don't start recording. And we don't stop here. So we are starting right in. We got a big episode today. We're talking about Gen Con, where our very own Vince V spent every dollar he owns on stuff at Gen Con. Vince, what you got to say for yourself?
I did spend a lot of money at Gen Con, more than I should have. That is true. Some of that might be on magic stuff, which we're not going to talk about today. The way we're going to structure this today, this will be a little different for everybody. John is just learning this for the first time, too. So the way we're going to structure this today is I want to start, we're going to talk about some just updates, general banter, stuff that happened in our last week's game. I got a banger for everybody as far as story time goes today. Then we're going to kind of two-tier out Gen Con, okay? So stay with us, everybody. We got two tiers. First tier I want to break it into is like news stuff, you know, things like that,
announcements.
Right? Just like, yeah, exactly. Because that's going to be our little bit of news this week. There's a bunch of that. And then we'll break it into like stuff I got, stuff I saw, what I was hunting for, what I see about the RPG market from being like very focused on it at Gen Con. So that's kind of how it's going to go today, folks. Get excited. This is going to be a big one.
I appreciate you giving us the title slide that breaks down what our time here is going to be today. That really helps me out. And actually, one of the things I wanted to talk about in our kind of intro section actually leaps right into one of your news items from the announcements at Gen Con. So I'm going to piggyback on you there once we get to draw steel. But first, Vince, how did your more recent D&D session go?
Well, the note, I'm sure you saw, that I left. So, you know, John and I obviously have like a shared doc we work on to plot out and plan the show and stuff. And in there, I just literally next to the bullet point wrote accidental genocide. Okay?
Happens to the best of us, right?
Who hasn't been involved, right? So let me explain. No, that would take too long. Let me sum up. Okay, so here we go. The party's still playing their way through the return to the keep on the Borderlands and all of that. And I mix in other things and that sort of stuff. And one of the things I'm very focused on in my current second edition campaign is making it feel like a living, evolving world, right? When they do things, the world continues to move and shift around them, right? Like stuff happens because of the choices they've made. And like, yes, that always happens to some degree, but I think it's easy for us to fall into like pre-written book adventures where you're just like on the little roller coaster going along and you don't really see the change in the world as a result of it, other than like the direct exact actions. You killed the dragon, so the king is like, yay, good job. Right.
Yeah.
Well,
if it doesn't happen on screen, it doesn't happen in the world.
Right. It's like, okay, well, you killed the dragon, but was the dragon suppressing some other, like a giant tribe in the area, right? It was keeping them in line. And yes, the king thanks you for killing the dragon, but now the giants are running amok. That's the kind of consequences I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
So at any rate, they've been focusing on clearing this cult out of the Caves of Chaos, and they were more or less successful. And then there's some time passed. Okay, like a couple days passed. They had they had the little murder mystery adventure I talked about last time. And then they were like, we got to go back to the caves and clean up kind of these last couple. And they go back and they find that like there's a bunch of battle that's clearly happened near the caves. And there's like blood and stuff there. And the cave that they had cleared out previously, which had been like the former Knoll cave and then taken over by part of the cult, is now clearly the Knolls again, as there's like heads on pikes out front. And the Bugbear cave is also heavily fortified. And it doesn't take like, I'm like, yeah, you cleaned out the power center that was keeping the caves in balance. Yeah. So now the Bugbears and the Knolls, the two major other power groups in here, are fighting for who's going to be in charge and for dominance, right? And they're like, okay, whatever. They're like, nothing seems to be happening right now. We've got this other cave we want to go into. It wasn't related to those two. It was kind of like an independent thing neither the tribes cared about. They go in there. They do that stuff. They handle whatever it is. Okay. This is like clearing out a mystery from earlier. They come back out, and the Bugbears and the Knolls are like face to face, right? Like they're in there yelling, screaming at each other in their various and sundry languages. Of course, the party has no idea what they're saying because no one's bothered to like really work on this problem that we can't understand you. And so there's like, you could get it from body language. They understand it's an aggressive confrontation. And the Bugbears are clearly kind of outnumbered here, right? Like I make that very clear that there's less. The Bugbears seem a little more like, plus the Bugbears had a sign up that they did work to translate that said like all humanoids welcome, like come join us for for freedom and liberation, right? That kind of thing. They
Oh
had
no.
seen that earlier. And the gnolls, they had some previous encounters with, and like they met with the one gnoll leader that was friendly to humans, and he was like, yeah, we're we'll work with you. How about you get them caves cleared, and then we'll talk about what we can do. Like he was more willing to use the party, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to kill them and eat them, which is what the other leaders wanted to do. And so the party decides. So like they're the two people kind of, they come out and they're like looking down the hill at this happening in the bottom of the valley, not super distance away, but some distance away. Two of the party members kind of saunter up. The gnolls take some note. They have like archers in the back and stuff, but they don't directly attack them or anything. They're not sure what's going on. And they can't understand what's being said, but it seems like there's some kind of confrontation. And so the bard just decides, no problem. I'm going to cast a sleep spell on some of the bugbears. This is the decision. I was like, okay, roll out how many people you get. And so he gets like max, and a bunch of bugbears fall asleep. Okay, just like drop. If you remember second edition sleep, it's super effective, right?
Yes.
Immediately the gnolls, once the numbers on the other side are diminished, go like, yeah, and just like start stabbing the people that are asleep to death. Okay. And the bard is like, whoa, I thought they'd like take him prisoner. I was like, really? You thought okay, that's fine.
This was the same group that wanted to eat you. Like,
right. And so he puts them to sleep, and that starts the gnolls, like they go frenzied, like they go crazy, right?
Oh.
And so the other party members up there, like the bugbear leader's like, he kind of like pushes the other leader away and like tries to get his shield in front of some of his troops and like starts to call like a strategic retreat right back into their cave. So the wizard responds by he's like, well, if we're in for a penny, and he casts Ray of Paralysis on the bugbear leader and just straight paralyzes him, homie. Okay. At which point they then kill him. And once he dies, that's it. Like the dominoes fall.
Oh,
right?
No.
The gnolls like sweep forward and just massacre the bugbears. And then they're like into the cave.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. This is like a mob. Once the first blood is spilled, like the mob cannot be satiated. Like they're just going to keep going.
And like what I know is that the bugbear cave is full of like women and children and, the old and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Everybody who they had collected from the caves who had survived. And I'm like, well, they're all dead now. Okay.
You wrote down.
So then the party, as this is going on, the party's like, well, that didn't go how we thought it was going to go. And in my head, I'm like, well, I don't know how you thought it was going to go, but all right. And they just like bounce. They just leave. Okay.
Okay. You wrote accidental genocide, and I think we can effectively cross out the word accidental in that statement, because that wasn't accidental. Like there's a very little cause and effect line you could mentally draw that doesn't come to that as the obvious way that's going to go.
Well, it gets even better because so we've actually played 2 games since we last recorded because of how our recording schedule worked with Gen Con. And in the next game, they went back to the caves again. Okay. And the gnolls come out and meet them. And the gnolls are like excited to see them.
Our allies have returned.
Yes. There's like one of them that can speak common, and he comes out and he's like, everybody is so thrilled you've come back. I knew it was good to make allies of you. Yunugu is so proud of your work, right? Yunugu, the demon lord of the gnolls. He's like, he's so grateful. We have received, clearly he has sent you to us as a blessing. And so the gnolls like bring them in and have a feast for them. And they're like, and some of the PCs are like eating. And then one of them's like, hey, what's this feast made of? And I'm like,
I'm glad you asked.
It's like, well, you can do your own math. All right. Like they just slaughtered a tribe of bugbears. Who do you think it is? Oh, in the interim, they had also killed all the hobgoblins. Like they had killed the other cave. Like that's it. They're in charge now. Right.
The great thing about this campaign is that everything are these like ecosystems working in balance.
Yes.
And no matter what the players do, you are going to naturally offset the balance.
Right.
And so it's such a great way to show very like tangibly, sometimes in small incremental things, and sometimes they are going to build in a very massive way, which I foresee coming with this Noel situation of
Yes.
how they impact this balance and throw things out of whack.
Oh, 100%. Like, yes, I'm not going to spoil what's coming in the future, but yeah, they directly asked them like, "Hey, are you going to go attack the keep?" And the guy's like, "Probably not anytime soon. When we do, we'll probably need your help to do it."
Oh, I'm sure this is going to go just as planned as well. You put him to sleep. Oh my gosh. Right. Yeah. Yeah. This is like two warring, nasty tribes.
Yeah.
And you're just like, numbers? Numbers?
Right.
Okay. Let's
So,
go.
anyways, that's the story of accidental genocide, and the party was like left to deal with the consequences of all of that. Yes.
My next session is just 2 days from today, and I found out earlier this week one of our members cannot make it. He had a surgery on the inside of his mouth, so he's really hurting and struggling. And so we're going to be down to 3 players this session, and he plays our cleric. So this is going to be a very interesting, very fun session. It kind of helps me to reinforces the fact that I multi-class 1 level of ranger on my illusionist, and I have access to the light cure spell, so I have some level of like.
Oh, then you're fine.
Prevent us from totally whiffing it, and that's what I thought too. I'm like,
there was like one of those old Dragon magazine comics. I don't remember which one it was, but it was like there's the 3 adventurers, and like none of them are a cleric, and they're all marching off. And they're like, wait a minute. We can't go to the cave of the Demi-Lich Lord. We don't have a cleric. And the one guy's like, it's cool. I bought 3 potions of cure light wounds. And the other guys are like, oh, we're fine then. Let's go.
That's it. Right. You know, sometimes I find that that's some of the fun knobs and dials that you can tweak and you can turn as a DM and as a group. That kind of helps you think outside your own typical box and different ways to approach things. So I'm very much looking forward to it, as our group is just a bit of a in-city kind of mystery Sherlock Holmes-esque type of thing that we're figuring out with this old long dead wizard that understood how the creation and evolution of soul stones and soul, what's the word? Reincarnation. That's the word. How that works. But he's long dead, and so we are going to check out his pyramid. And nice. I have a feeling that we already got a little bit of whispers that it is guarded in the inside of the pyramid. So we are going into a nasty pyramid tomb. So we'll see how this turns out. So
sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I love being light on clerics. It's always interesting. And the same way I like groups that are like super heavy on healing too. Both actually present for really interesting situations.
Right. So I agree. So yeah, our group of 3 without the cleric is a fighter, a rogue, and a illusionist. So I'm gonna have to use my full bag of tricks here. Everything I got in my I can pull out my sleeve. That is just to throw everything for a loop. That is my goal for this, and it's going to be fun.
Very nice.
All right, let's dig into Gen Con. Vince, you went to Gen Con. Do you go every year, right?
I do, yes. I've been every year since 2006. That's right.
I have never gone, and my tentative...
we're going to change that next year. Audience,
yes.
Listen, right now, down in the comments, I want you to berate John about not going to Gen Con in some way. He's complaining because it's relatively close to Nova, like a month apart. This guy, okay? Yeah. I want you to all berate him for not doing this when he darn well should. Mr. Role Playing and Magic and
I know,
war game enthusiast can't go, can't make a special year of it one time to do 2 conventions. That's all I'm saying. So please berate him heavily. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll do that. I will make it happen. And if the more people pressure me to do so, the more stress I feel, and the more I will work to make it happen. Maybe, if this podcast is going well and we got enough gazeboids that attend, maybe we can do a fun meetup, something fun that we can do there. I like the idea of something like that. Maybe one day we'll be so big that we can do a live play, right? Live at Gen Con. I would fucking run a one shot.
Yeah, we'll pack a stadium just like Critical Role. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the end of this road for sure.
100%. Yeah, I'm looking forward to those days to do some craziness with a live audience. So, all right. But that didn't happen for you this year, but you did a lot of fun things. You want to dig into like the announcements first?
Yeah, let's dig into some newsy news, right? So this is going to be a little bit of news than normal because Gen Con is a really big week for news announcements with RPGs, right? I mean, that's just what happens. So I want to talk about some of these things I saw. Number one, a thing I'm very excited about. John, are you familiar with a little anime called The Record of Lodoss Wars? Have you heard of
I've
this?
seen this. I've heard about this. Yes.
Yes. Have you seen this thing? Okay.
Uh-huh.
So that is obviously ostensibly a very D&D-esque thing, but it's
Uh-huh.
not really directly based on D&D. It's more based on a RPG called Sword World. And so basically when D&D came to Japan back in the 80s, it was very popular and kind of took off immediately. So whole big in Japan thing. The problem was it wasn't really native, like it was in English and there wasn't really translations. And so people made a I have no idea who the original creator was. I just know that it was created this RPG called Sword World. And Sword World became bigger than D&D in Japan. Okay, so it's very native to Japan. It's in Japanese. Like, you can find people who've gone the distance and translated the whole thing, but there's never been an official English version of the thing. Okay. It's always just been this like very unique to Japan RPG that's bigger than that. And that's what a lot of sort of fantasy anime and other stuff like Lodoss Wars is based off of. Okay.
I like the sound of this already.
Yeah, it's a really interesting game. I have read like some of the current 2.5 English translations. They're on version 2.5 out of like, which is amazing given it's been out for I don't know, almost 40 years. So it's stayed pretty stable over time. But it's getting its first official English translation for the 2.5 edition in 2026. And they had a booth there too. I had heard about it. It got announced around Gen Con, and then like they actually had it there with a little poster and a booth and stuff like that, so you could kind of see what was coming. So,
but you couldn't buy the book yet.
I mean, they had like the Japanese books there, but I cannot read Japanese.
Yeah, that doesn't help me so much. Oh man, that's exciting, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, you're like, oh, it's edition 2.5. If it's been around for 30 years, I kind of like the idea of it, like feeling a bit more in touch with the historical versions, right?
And it does. Like it's a wild ride. Like again, it is much more crunchy and sort of it's hard to explain, but like when you're generating your stats, you pick like your sort of background thing, and that gives you like these 3, and then those 3 become 6 as you like roll and pick your class and your race and stuff. And like the way they translate out, you have to generate stats for like what's called stat A, B, C, D, E, F, and like the base stat plus A and the base stat plus B equals this certain other stat, and so on and so forth. Like it's very mathy. Okay, it's not super complicated once you like kind of see a living example of it, but it is way more complicated than what most modern US like books would be written as. So
I can feel like there's a little sense or a feel of like a BattleTech almost like level of depth to it, which I love getting that deep in that crunch. Nothing makes me happier than spending a good 4 or 5 hours rolling up a character, right?
Oh yeah, it's an experience for sure. You can. What's neat is in the current edition they do have like quick start characters. So like if you want, you can just like, you don't have to go through this whole process. They just like have pre-gen characters effectively. You can kind of minorly modify and go. But there's also like a detailed character creation if you want to go from scratch, which is nice. So
I also appreciate just like evoking the name Sword World just feels like a rough translation, that it's something
more, doesn't it?
It's something much more rich and in depth and honor bound in its original Japanese, but in English it's like Sword World.
Yeah.
I love that.
And there are like and of course one of the things I love is that like their concepts of a lot of the more more traditional fantasy races that we would think of in games, going back to our discussion about like weirdo races, right? They don't have the same dumb biases and like preset conceptions. So like the base races on offer in that book or species, or whatever you say, are not what you would expect if you're coming from a sort of more traditional US or European lens. And I'm here for it. If you want, bunny people and stuff like that. And all the art is obviously like super duper anime art, obviously.
This sounds right up my alley.
It's pretty cool. Cool.
There's very few styles of art that, from a fantasy perspective, that I love more than like traditional Final Fantasy art.
That's what it feels like.
Japanese. It's got an anime like twist to it, but it's not a full anime style and very painterly and beautiful and like, oh man, I'm all for this. Yeah, my other question was like, I wonder if there's any connection. One of the big kind of core pillars in fantasy in Japan is related to video games, right? Because that's a big part of
Sure.
where that happened. And like the core of like the Squaresoft and Enix at the time, it became Square Enix and Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest and all those kinds of things. Very Eastern games, but built off of a Western premise. I wonder if that has a tie into things like classes, things like
They've
playable
intermingled in
races.
a big way, because like when you look at the class descriptions, it has, those little like, what are you good at hexagons? You know what I'm talking about, where it like stretches the little
Oh, the little
diagram out.
bars. Yeah.
Yeah, like you can picture it's like a 6 points, right? Like a little stop sign, and then like the bar will kind of float out to what you're good at towards the 6 points. You know what I'm saying? And it'll have like damage, burst, durability, magic. Like on all of the classes, it has that, and it shows the general map of that thing.
Oh man,
And what they're meant to be good at, which feels very video gamey.
That's something that happens in Monster Hunter. That's something that happens in Pokemon. That's something that happens at just about every Japanese MMO in the current generation for the last like 10 years.
Sure.
They all have those breakdowns of things, and I'm all for that. Even going back to games like Front Mission that aren't fantasy, but yeah, okay. I'm suddenly
So
much
when it
more
comes
excited.
out in English, I will be picking it up for sure.
Me too,
because I want to own this, and we will do a show on it. Super excited. Like I said, I had already read through the English translations before, so I was already kind of familiar with it and thought it was cool. But I'd just like to have, but I don't like to play from like a big giant PDF. Like I like to own physical books. So, anyways, all right, that's newsy news. That's little bit of news item number one. You're right. Little bit of news item number two. It's been everywhere. My God, as soon as it got announced, it was like everywhere, and everybody was talking about it. I saw 17 different articles on it. It's not an exaggeration when I was scrolling through my Google feed, and that is Brennan Lee Mulligan taking over for taking over as DM for campaign 4 for Critical Role. I had a friend who was at the Critical Role thing in the stadium or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It was a stadium show. It was crazy if you saw pictures of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, full on. And like Crawford and Perkins are both there talking about their new stuff. They're both working on developing stuff for Daggerheart. They talked a little bit about like the worlds and tools and stuff like they're developing. But obviously the switching DMs thing was the big story. So
I saw that he penned a 3-year contract. I don't know if that's the rough estimate of how long campaign 4 will run, or if it's just like the contract that he's got to work with them. I thought that was interesting. If this is not just kind of like a friends getting together and say, hey, do you want to run the next campaign kind of a thing? This is
I mean, it's big business now, right?
Yes, it's big business. And then so that's interesting. I like him, and actually some of his stuff that he's done, whether it's shorts and stuff like that, from the comedic standpoint, like,
of course, he's very funny.
He's funny and he's got chops, and I like that. And I'm just like, I see him as very well rounded. So I'm excited to see that. I will check it out. I will give it a fair shake and see where we go from there.
We will do the actual play episode at some point. We promise. It's coming. We got so many things we want to do. That's the issue. We only get one of these a week, but don't worry. That just means you can tune in for many weeks to come. There's going to be so many exciting things happening.
Yes. Forgotten Realms.
So let's talk about the D&D side of this, because of course Wizards also had some announcements. They announced where they're going with the realms. So they've got 2 new Forgotten Realms books coming November 11th. Think of it like a player's guide and adventurer's guide sort of thing. Or adventure guide, sorry. More DM focused. Player focused and DM focused. That's the easiest way to say it.
Which they've done traditionally with Forgotten Realms at some point in the edition lifespan for every edition since 2nd, I believe.
Yep.
So,
and the sort of notable thing here, in addition to like the stuff you would expect coming in the player's guide, the adventure thing for DMs has like 50 small adventures in it. Quite a lot.
Wow.
Like 50. Okay.
Wow.
Of like varying levels, as well as like a couple of different slightly longer ones, but most of them are just mini adventures. And the thing that stuck out to me that I caught sort of most notably was they are releasing, like, with the 2 books, one of the things you can buy is like this ultimate bundle, and if you do so, you get like the digital versions of both and the physical versions of both, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in addition, you get these 3 other add-ons. Okay.
Okay.
That are like digital add-ons. One of them's like Asterian's Book of Hunger or something like that, and that will introduce like the Dhampir back in, like half vampire.
Yeah.
All we can do now is reintroduce stuff. By the way, that's all we ever do.
Absolutely.
Is just reintroduce the same thing.
Through the generations, we've done nothing but create bloat instead of like redesign and slim down and whatever. So there's just too much stuff to keep making more things. We just have to redo what we have already done. Yeah.
Yep. So but at any rate, the reason that I think it's super notable is that this bundle's like $160.
Woo!
Okay. 160. And as near as we can tell, by the way, the other 2, they also announced the second one. I don't remember what it was. I didn't care that much. And the third one, they're like, a secret third digital thing we'll reveal later. Like, okay, fine, whatever. The important part here, though, is that stuff, those digital releases, like the Asterian Book of Hunger that introduces these new species options and stuff like that, those are only available in the Ultimate Bundle for right now.
What?
They said they don't have any immediate plans to offer it alone. Now, okay, within 5 minutes of it being released, you'll be able to find it somewhere on the internet on like one of the aggregate sites. Sure. But like, that's kind of annoying. I don't like that. Don't lock content behind this $160 Ultimate Bundle when I don't want. I might not want all of that. Maybe I just want the little digital thing. Sell me the little thing I want. Stop trying to. I hate that. I hate locking stuff behind a giant bundle. Really hate it.
That's. I mean, it does nothing but leave a bad taste in consumers' mouth. The bad kind of FOMO, right? There is a way to run FOMO in a positive way that making people feel rewarded instead of making people feel like excluded. And this just, I don't know. It almost feels like a hint smells of desperation a little bit.
I don't know, man. I don't know what to make of it other than I don't like it. Like this is the same thing that would happen in our world, in our previous world, right? So Warhammer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. Sorry, everybody.
Bless you.
This would happen all the time where we get those FOMO boxes and they'd have like one unique hero in them. And that was the only way to get that unique hero for a while.
Yep.
And like, fine, if you're going to say we release the box and then a month later we put the guy out individually.
Yes.
Okay.
We know it's
that's
coming.
What you're going to do.
Right.
Great. Right. But don't put it out there and be like, well, oh, who knows?
Ooh.
Like, okay, cool. I'll just steal it then.
Right.
Like, that's the answer. I'm just going to go to one of the aggregator sites and figure out what the rules are and use them. Like, that's insane. So, because I don't generally buy digital content, so I like physical books.
You're exposing more of your potential market to free ways to find it. And then you have opened the door to them understanding how they can get more of your stuff for free. And then you're going to sell less to them long term. Like, it's not a good long term strategy to do that. So from a business side, even, right? So, which I assume their whole reasoning behind this, because it doesn't make sense any other way. All right, let's talk about Draw Steel, Vince.
Yes. Now, this actually happened in line with the sort of Gen Con week, right? Mm-hmm. Because MCDM, so Matt Colville, he basically had Draw Steel launch, right? And so it's and the sort of articles I read, it is a tactical miniatures focused game where the idea is like the more you do, the cooler you get. Like you build up in power over the course of it instead of attritting down is kind of the idea of the thing. I will be honest, in reading this, like in reading the short description, I was like, well, I'm out. Because I heard tactical miniatures focused and I was like, nope, no thank you. Goodbye.
Okay. Well, this is what my thing was that I wanted to add on to something that I was excited about. I was excited about. Okay. One of the few D&D podcasts that I listen to is called Dungeon Master's Block, and it's a Dungeon Master focused podcast, kind of sporadic when episodes come out, but in general, I like it, and they have some good guests on now and again. And they just had an episode this week that they had the two, I can't remember what their exact job titles are. I apologize in advance if this gets across to those folks, but like the creative directors, basically the
Yep.
game developers, senior game developers, that might have been their titles, that made this game. So it wasn't Matt Colville, it was the two other guys, and they have been working on this game for years. It sounds like even prior to connecting with Matt to create this thing a reality. And so they had a really interesting Q&A and breakdown of what is this game. And the parts of it that really excited me,
Yep.
it sounds like they might have been either glossed over or not focused on in the things that you are, what you read. So first,
again, I only read a summary, so like,
okay.
yes, I'm perfectly willing to accept that.
First and foremost, what the premise of this game is that combat in these fantasy games often defines what we consider the highs and low points of a general session. However, the rule systems and the structure around the parts that aren't the combat are less of a focus and more about telling the story you want to tell and just having enough structure there to allow a game story to unfold and flexibility to do so. So they have taken much of their focus on making the most cinematic, exciting, dramatic versions of combat while keeping the exciting storytelling stuff much more in the hands and much less crunchy. So that's the basic premise.
That's a good premise. I support that part.
Right. The next thing, they understand that historically through RPGs, the struggle for resource balance and resource management. So it always feels like you're the best at the beginning and you're just trying to balance your resources as they whittle down throughout the day. And you're always worried about how much you have to save and keeping enough resources to just make it through the day. And then oftentimes this leads to a really difficult situation to really challenge your PCs and challenging them and putting them in precarious situations that don't end up feeling unfun because you had to bend the stick so far that it broke just to try to make it there. So their premise here is that it's skewed completely the other direction. And that's what you were talking about, this ramp up throughout the day. It feels very much like a press your luck type of game, where as you go throughout the day, you build up a level of resource that unlocks capabilities within your class. So at the start of the day, there was an example of maybe you could just cast some kind of a spray of ice. All right. And it can hit a couple monsters in front of you. But as you build up this resource throughout the day and you get this through engaging in combat and in succeeding or failing or whatever, that you've built up this resource, feels very anime-esque. That
I was going to say it's very fighting game.
Yes.
Right, where you're building up a bar and then eventually unleashing a super move.
And they made that reference too, right? Into like Street Fighter and Marvel vs. Capcom style games. And that you know maybe then you can figure out based on how you've tailored and you've customized your class in your decisions, much like a skill tree from a video game, how your different powers and how you've customized your characters will level up. So it's just choices in how they level up. So maybe it sends out, instead of a little spray, it sends out 6 frost magic missile style things that are heat seeking, or they can shoot through enemies and hit more enemies behind them and that kind of a thing. But as you press your luck, you are getting more and more powerful throughout the day, but that puts you closer to in trouble, right? Because your resources are then extended further, and we can do better if we keep going instead of we can just always take a rest. And it really deters the party from just resting all the time, right? And so it's trying to make a more realistic version of that. Now, the kinds of things that I think worry you is this is all grid-based. Right?
Yes.
So it's very battle map, grid-based game. Very similar in kind of its required standpoint as D&D 4th edition was. So the exact number of squares and all that kind of stuff really matter. And so if you're not someone that likes to play on a grid and play with miniatures, immediately you might say, oh, that sounds like not my cup of tea. But everything that they were talking about in the breaking down of the excitement of encounter building, a lot of talk about the DM side and the uniqueness of monsters and how they're really focused on having the monsters feel unique, fill certain roles, building exciting battle maps and encounters. So all this stuff feels much more cinematic. Again, from a positive standpoint, from my experience, feels like the positive side of 4th edition of creating dynamic versions of encounters and having all the tools to do so. It sounds like it's a very robust encounter building tool system that they have in place for this for the GM. So
are you picking this thing up?
I think so. This sounds like my jam, assuming it has enough depth outside of the combat stuff, right?
Okay.
So if this combat system just feels like a shitload of fun for players and a lot of fun for me as a DM to spend my time building really cool encounters, and we can build in, it's got enough structure to build in an amazing story and things to do outside of the fighting, instead of it just being a straight up dungeon crawler, which I think if you have a seasoned group, you need to rely on that less from a game system to make that a reality.
Sure.
This sounds exciting to me. So I'm absolutely going to pick it up and I'm going to give it a read through. I'm going to play some with it, and I'll give you my full thoughts and feedback afterwards. But it sounds like it's not necessarily the kind of game that you like to run.
No, and like, again, we'll do the miniatures thing at some point. It's another future episode. We're going to talk about it. But I mean, like, as a spoiler for that episode, no, anytime I hear that there's miniatures involved or like a grid or anything like that, I'm out instantly. Like, I cannot explain how anathema that is to my desires when doing an RPG. So
it reminds me, and I don't think we've talked about this since, but since I've started D&D 2024, we have done exactly one fight with the grid and miniatures.
Sure.
We have done a half dozen sessions, probably 10 fights, and no grid, no miniatures, and that kind of loosey-goosey rules for combat really worked well for that. So I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it.
It's for the episode. We'll save it. We'll save it. I'm glad to hear that one. Absolutely. Get your pitchforks and or pom poms ready, depending on whether you want to kill us or cheer us. Right. So we'll see. Okay. That's kind of all the little news. There was other stuff, of course, but I thought that was kind of 4 big things, right? So there you go.
That's great, because someone as someone like me that doesn't scour for all of that stuff post Gen Con or big events like that, like I feel after hearing what you've got to say there that I caught the 80% of it that really jumped off the page. So I appreciate it. I don't know if the Gazeboids do, but I do. Vince, so thanks.
Yeah, no, happy to help. I mean, there was some other cool things like Twilight Sword. I think we talked about it. That was like the new Free League game with like the penguins as basically big giant orc people and stuff like that. I think we mentioned it on the show. But anyways, they kind of announced or had that there. I think we talked about it last week because it kind of got announced beforehand. But at any rate, I'm going to talk about Free League a little bit here in a moment. But let's go like just in general and why I think they're a really cool company doing cool things. All right. So let's get into Gen Con, my experiences. Here we go. All right. We got to start with the fun stuff here, John. Okay. Which is, Vince, what did you buy? What did you buy at Gen Con?
What did you buy? Yeah.
I've got it all next to me.
Okay.
Right, first thing, I bought this. Look at this little guy.
This is a piece of art that looks like a weird, is that a drake?
It's a little dragon. It's a little baby dragon. He's got little tiny wings. He's got a big giant head. It's from Mark Bem. And I love it. I just thought it was so adorable. He had my favorite, like I always try to pick up one piece of art. And this one caught me. I thought he looked so fun and happy. And yeah, I love him and we'll die for him.
That's beautiful. It's a print. Is it signed by him too?
Yep. Yeah. He signed it. Yeah. But yes, It's a print. Yeah, exactly. Yes. I'm not balling so hard off of what I do that I buy original art. They have it there for sale, but that's a bit outside of my price range.
I mean, dude, one day, Vince, we'll be collecting all the original old MTG art to put on our walls. When we become billionaires, that's what we're going to do with our
that's me.
Spendable money.
Me and Post Malone. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. That's a great one.
The other thing I did, there's really only one. So first of all, I am sad at the number of people selling old D&D stuff at Gen Con. This is like basically my favorite store. Shout out to Games Plus. I have their card here somewhere. Yeah, there it is. Games Plus. If you're looking at this on video, but anyways, they're in Mount Prospect, Illinois.
Okay.
So they seem a very good store, and they've always dealt. They have very nice, high quality old D&D products. So I went through, I picked up some stuff. I've got as the YouTube viewers will see, quite a stack of stuff here. So let's talk about it. First of all, I got Dwarves Deep. This is a really great setting. This is like under the ground. So it has a big map of the dwarven lands, but it's like it's the map of Forgotten Realms, but just like the underground stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like just with their caves and their holds and stuff like that.
They
Not
call
generally
it a
big.
mine.
Yes, exactly. I'm not generally a big dwarf fan, but that's actually would be pretty fun to run, I think.
Right.
Similarly here, we've got all these were like in good condition with the maps, as you can see. There's the map.
Oh,
back.
baby.
The next one is Anarok.
Oh, yeah.
The beautiful Anarok book, which details the tribes and peoples and details of the Great Desert in the northern part of the Forgotten Realms, which I love Anarok and stuff like that.
How much were these? Are these real expensive? I gotta imagine they're not cheap.
They're not too bad, honestly. Like 30 or 40, usually somewhere in that range.
Not really any different than if you were to buy a brand new book.
Yeah, I mean, more expensive than what they were originally, but you know, but not
with
bad.
Cost of inflation, not that much more.
Honestly, it's probably cheaper than with inflation. I bet they haven't kept pace. You're not wrong.
Yeah.
Next up, one of my favorite regions in the realms, which is the Moon Sea.
Yeah, I have that book.
I love the Moon Sea. I think it's really fun. The 4 cities around the Moon Sea are all really fun to play in. They're all jerks. It's just like 4 jerk cities full of jerks. And so it's just really fun to be like antagonistic with the PCs. So I thought I've just always liked the Moon Sea. Picked up a fun adventure in case my campaign goes really long, which is Nightmare Keep. This, John, is a brutal adventure.
Brutal.
This is for 4 to 6 characters of level 18 to 20.
Oh, boy.
Speaking of high level play.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's interesting that it's a keep in the Forgotten Realms for that level, and you've not ascended to fighting gods and demons.
Ooh, you don't have to. You don't have to. And then lastly, I picked up 2 of the 3. I still need to get the third one, but these were too nice to pick up. These were really cheap, actually. So this is the Marco Volo series. So this is Journey and Arrival. I'm missing the part 1, which is Departure. But they were both like really, really nice condition. Basically, they're all like for level like 6 to 8, 9, roughly in that area. So it's good like mid-level adventures.
I seem to remember running the first one way back in the day, and it was a very fun kind of whimsical fantasy story and setting and adventure setting. And that's like, it's kind of in your meat and potatoes of really identifying and solidifying the uniqueness of each class. And it's a really good time to jump out in that kind of stuff. So that's great.
What was fascinating about those 2, I had to pick them up, was they're still in the original shrink.
Oh, baby.
Okay. Like, and I was like, wow, I don't even know if I want, like, now I'm going to have to open them. Like, if I want to, when I play with them, I'll have to open them. And that's like, oh boy, they've stayed in the shrink wrap for 30 years, but nope, time to crack that seal.
I can't help but notice that every one of those books was a Forgotten Realm setting book.
It was. Yeah. That wasn't intentional. I actually wanted to get a bunch of Mystara stuff. I picked up like a couple of Dragon magazines and things like that too that were key I was looking for. I wanted to pick up a bunch of Mystara stuff, but they just didn't have any of it there and with them. That was the issue.
Is this unlocked a goal for you to own every second edition of Forgotten Realms book? Because I feel like I don't think you're probably I don't say super close, but I don't think you're probably too far away. You've got all the hard to get stuff.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I'd have to go look at the published list, but no, I mean, as far as second edition Forgotten Realms stuff, I have a lot of it. I'll say that much. So
yeah,
I'm definitely over the halfway point. That is for sure.
Right. You need to make your little checklist, and then you can just keep that with you at all times, and just know, you're getting one step closer for your dragon's hoard to be fulfilled.
So that was all my old school stuff I picked up. Some of that to use in immediate sense, some not. I had talks with one of my players for my Tuesday second edition game, and I was like, I was there at Gen Con with some of the players that game, and I was like, look, guys, I'm not going to lie. I just want us to keep doing this forever. Can we just not go back to 5th edition? Because like whoever picks up next, just 1 second. I know you all don't know it as well, but I'm hoping over the course of the game you can figure it out. So we'll see. But I also picked up a brand new game.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's a big book. What's this big
It is
book?
indeed. So this game is called Blue Rose. Okay.
Okay.
And it is the age of role playing game of romantic fantasy. So it's kind of like a Celtic romantic history type of setting.
Oh.
And it is from Green Ronin Publishing. Okay. Who I was happy to support. I like a lot of Green Ronin stuff.
Uh-huh.
This will lead into 2 discussions later on. But the reason I picked this up was it had a bit of an old school feel to it. I like a lot of the idea of the mechanics in the world. I like sort of Celtic myth and fantasy.
Yeah.
I've written a couple game worlds myself based on Celtic myths, and I just think it's like a fascinating area to play in. It's very much around that kind of thing. Like it has this romance / relationships matter thing. You don't have to have like a romantic element to it if you don't want to. It's just relationships matter. So like your fealty to your king is an important part of your character or whatever, right? Like whoever you serve or the bonds you have with like a friend really matter. Like that stuff matters a lot to your character. They take a big focus on like connecting your character into the world through whether it be friendships, service relationships, mentor relationships, whatever, right?
And as we've talked about in previous episodes, sometimes those connections to the NPCs and your relationships are some of the biggest ways you can influence your game and really make connectivity for players. So it just seems
That's
like
right.
Building that strong from the get-go is a smart move.
And that's what got me into it. Like it's very rules light, but it's there. It's like a part of it's a focused part of your character creation that you're going to define those things and have a little tiny mechanic to interact with it in a positive way. And I was like, yes. Like I read it and I was like, this is the correct mechanical touch. Does that make sense? What was there? So I liked it. One thing I'll say for you. So like when it comes to like the species or peoples that are available, I thought this would be funny for you. You've got like basically an orc type people, you've got humans, you've got an elf type people. That's all fine. You've got like a sea folk type people, like people who live in the oceans and stuff. But what I particularly liked is that they also have, you're gonna love this, John. They also have this thing called Raiden. Okay.
Just a
And
fucking cat.
that is a cat. You are just a cat. You are a sentient psychic cat, but you are a cat. An ape, a badger, a bear, a boar, a cat, a crocodile, a dog, a dolphin, a hawk, an owl, horse, lizard, raccoon, raven, snake, weasel, wolf. So they're not even animal people, as per our previous episode. You're just playing
an animal.
The animal. You're slightly bigger.
Hot take.
But
I think that's better. Let me be a fucking animal. Don't make me be animal man. Make me just animal. I mean, I'm already going to be struggling. I got no opposable thumbs.
Correct.
There's certain things I just cannot accomplish.
They talk about that very directly. Like, yep, you are an animal. You like, depending on the type of animal you are, there's probably very real limitations on the types of physical activities you can undertake, right? And you just got to, deal with that, man.
Right. Oh man, it's got a lot of. Oh man, I'm just thinking so much about this. Depends on your where you're at in the environment. It's like certain places I wouldn't think twice about if there's a wolf, but certain other places you're just like you're in the middle of the desert and there's a baboon sitting there, and you're like, what the heck is a baboon doing out here? And it's
then he talks in your brain.
Right. Yeah, he can just speak to you. I wonder how common they are. If you're just talking to random strangers through their brains, like what can you get them to do because they just have never experienced anything like this before?
I think in the setting of this world, they're pretty common. So,
right. Wow.
So then so people expect that they'll be talking animals or whatever, like animals that talk in their brains. So animals don't talk out loud.
Other than actual cats and then psychic cats?
Yes.
So then how do you know the difference?
They're bigger.
They're bigger.
Right animals are slightly bigger. Yeah. If you saw the art of him, he's pretty big. He's like
if we've learned anything from Warhammer is that the bigger it is, the more powerful it is. And that is everything is size based. So, okay. I can stand by that. But what if you are a wizard cat and you cast the shrink spell on yourself to be the size of a normal cat?
Well, that's fun. That, like you mentioned that, one of the other things that interested me about the game was their magic system is sort of very fun. I won't go into great detail on it, though. Maybe we're going to play it at some point. We're going to run a marathon of it here later this year. So maybe there'll be a future episode where I kind of go into detail about it. But the magic system is very interesting and fun. So I really liked kind of how it worked. You basically like take some, just explain this as simple as possible. You sort of take these talents, and the talents give you then access to specific arcana. And the
Mm.
arcana, so like think an arcana would be like light shaping.
Okay.
Okay. And so like light shaping underneath that has a bunch of different discrete functions it can do.
Okay.
All right. You can sort of use it generally if you want to try to go off recipe in some way, and the GM can educate some way for you to do that. Right.
Yeah.
Or you can use like one of the on label functions, if that makes sense. So like in light shaping, a basic use would be like light, make
You're
a
right.
boop, right? Very obvious. But another one would be invisibility. Bend light around
Mm.
yourself and make yourself invisible, right? And so they all just have different target numbers. So you can cast spells kind of basically as often as you want, but every time you do so, it's like a check to get it off and so on and so forth. So it doesn't use like a Vanskin magic system. There's like checks, and some things exhaust you and you build up exhaustion and makes it harder to use for future magic and stuff like that. But simple magics you can just kind of bang on the drum on all day.
We call that the Raceland system. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That sounds solid. I like the idea of like this is an umbrella. And how can you imagine ways that you can use things under that umbrella?
Yeah,
You
so
know?
you got like light shaping and fire shaping and body. What is it called? Like body, like the stuff where you think of you would fit like alter self and all things like that, right? Where you're like changing or like fleshing a poison from yourself or a disease from yourself. You know, all those kinds of things would fall under
So like
that, right?
transmogrifying kind of thing.
Yeah, like body. It's not body modification, but it's something like that, right?
I will suck all the moisture out of this person's body.
Yeah,
That feels powerful.
You know, I just thought that was like a neat take. I liked kind of the I liked the cut of the game, and that brings me into my broader topic around this, which is like I spent a lot of time focusing on RPGs because I really, for the podcast, and just for my interest in general, I really wanted to walk around and like get a bead of the fantasy RPG scene. I talked to a couple sci-fi RPG people as well. There's a lot there, especially from an indie realm. Like I walked by, there's a big row where there's just like a bunch of RPGs, like just both sides of the row are just RPGs all the way down, John, like 50 of them. Okay. Woo. It's crazy. And there was a big poster for Phantasy Star RPG. Do you know Phantasy Star?
I know the video game Phantasy Star.
Yeah, yes. It was on Sega and that kind of stuff. And that was my thing because I was a Sega kid, didn't have a PlayStation or a Nintendo. I was real excited, but it wasn't out yet. It was like you can pre-order now. I was like, oh man. Come on. Taunting me with your poster.
I assume I
want to play in Phantasy Star World.
When you play Phantasy Star, all 4 of the PCs have to be seated right next to each other on a table, and then the DM stands behind them, so he only gets to see their shoulders and their head from behind, because that is the perspective. Yes. Okay. I get it.
And your sister will inevitably die, no matter how hard you work. That's just going to happen.
That is a core story moment for every Phantasy Star.
Right. Okay. So at any rate, so I talked to like basically I would walk up and I was like, I would look at the book, and of course the person at the booth is like very excited that someone's looking at the booth, right? Or looking at the book. And I'm like, and they would come up and they'd be like, do you need help? And I'd be like, yeah, pitch me your game. Talk to me. What is this? Right? Like explain. Okay. Right. And so I just listened to everyone's pitch. What did they talk about? What did they find interesting about their game? Why'd they write it? Right.
Okay.
That kind of thing. Some of them I already knew, like, you know, Dungeon Crawl Classics and stuff was there in a big way, DCC. Yeah. And I'm already familiar with that game and stuff. So like, but I was looking at some of their newer books that they have out because it's obviously a huge ecosystem that they have. And what was fascinating is that with so many companies, the Blue Rose thing is a good example. Like Green Ronin's a good example. Because that's part of like Age of Fantasy is like their generic version, and then Blue Rose uses the same mechanics but sets it in a specific world, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So it's like a Forgotten Realms equivalent or whatever.
Right.
The fascinating thing was in almost every company, there was the version of the game they wanted to make. Okay.
Okay.
And then there was a 5e version of the game.
Oh, no.
Like that Blue Rose has like a 5e adaptation book. Like if you want to play this, but you just want to use this setting in 5e, here's the book to do that. Right. And so on and so on. And this was like, I saw this repeated over and over and over again. Lord of the Rings, Arcanus, so on. Like this is all over the place. Okay. Or it'd be like, here's the game that we clearly wanted to make, but also we made it for 5e as well. So everybody who's making games, I shouldn't say everybody. That's an exaggeration, obviously. But a lot of people who are making games now make the game twice.
Isn't that just really dilute what your game is about if you've got to pigeonhole it into something when your whole point was to make something unique. And I get the amount of extra work it is compared to your potential sales and your ability to expose people to all the cool work that you did. I totally understand it, but it's also like, God damn it. Can't you just let the thing live the way you wanted it to exist? You know?
Yeah, it's tough. Like, I get it. I get why they're doing it, right? Because there's a lot of 5e players out there, and people will be much more likely to pick something up and play it if it says that, if it has those two, that little letter number combination on it, right?
Mm-hmm. I am interested if we would look in the future between 2 to 4 years from now, how much that has changed, because we have enough heavy hitters now between Pathfinder Second Edition, Draw Steel, Daggerheart. There are big, hitters coming to the market roughly in a similar timeline, and it doesn't feel like D&D 5th Edition 2024 is in a very good spot. So we'll see if that kind of turns the other way a little bit as people are more excited and trying out brand new systems, and that lets them understand that it's not such a big lift. Once you get some experience under your belt about RPGs in general, the more you're able to try new systems and not feel like it's reinventing the wheel kind of a thing. So
you get the basic language of the thing, right? Because that's what it is.
Yep.
And you just skip the section of what is a TTRPG. It's like, okay, I know, got it. All right. Yeah. So the other thing, that was an interesting find. There's still a good number of games that were there that are sort of available, both like sort of new stuff, more of course, sort of old and classic stuff. Talk about kind of all that in a moment. But walking around, I was struck by something, John. I think I might be the weird one. Okay.
No.
Yeah, I know. This is probably news.
Okay, sure. All right, Vince. Well, I'm shocked and awed by that statement, but please explain.
I'll unpack that a bit. I am looking, when I'm looking at D&D, there's plenty of other games I enjoy playing. Okay. And they're fine, and I like the experience of them for what they do and what they promise. That's why I'm interested in that game. It's very different, and it's something on its own, and it seems like it's got mechanics and stuff like that support its world and its feel and all that vibe. We've talked about a lot of other games on this so far. But when it comes to D&D, I want to play a game with a lot of crunchy crunch and simulationist kind of feel to it. That's what I want. I want it to feel quote unquote real, whatever that means. There's a verisimilitude to it, I suppose, is what I'm saying.
You're telling me you want to track weight in arrows, is what you're telling me, Vince.
Maybe not arrows, but yeah, weight. Yeah. I've asked players multiple times how much stuff they have. They said they're going to carry something. I was like, well, what's your encumbrance and how much can you carry and how much do you have on you in the current game? Right. Yes, I want that to matter. Right. Because that's very real.
Right.
And I want there to be a lot of, I'm not looking for simplified abstraction. I'm really not. Okay. Not with D&D. And as a result, where that puts me, I'm very happy in this second edition game. Most of the mimicking games, this leads into sort of my next bullet point on here. There's the old school sort of Renaissance, broadly written, not the OSR specific game system, but the broader concept. It's still very much in swing. Okay. And I see this there. That's a very powerful voice on Twitter as well. I follow a lot of RPG Twitter and the conversations that are going on there and Blue Sky and so on. And the old school thing is very popular, but there's the most vocal people. And the thing that the market seems to be serving the most is what I would think of as the early era, sort of BX era, or the BEMSME era, the basic blah, 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 expert, Masters, Champions, Immortals, right? The sort of BEMSE era, that kind of thing. Basically 76 to 83, let's call it that. Okay. So they're not all like this, but Dungeon Crawl Classics is a good example of this. You have Magic User or Thief or whatever, right? You know what I'm saying? And Elf.
Right.
What are you? I'm an elf. That's what I am. Right. And I appreciate why those people like that era of gaming. It is very simplified, and it is very much like it creates the space for it's like sort of very sandboxy, where you as the
Mm-hmm.
GM can just kind of really freestyle and kind of add on whatever you want. Everything's just kind of educating on the fly. Not everything, but like a lot of stuff is just free education.
Mm-hmm.
And as a side note, obviously in response to that early era, lots of people then tried to define everything. Rollmaster was one of those early games that came out and like created tables for everything that was meant to like define everything, right?
Oh
Yes.
yeah.
And people have that perception of Rollmaster. The funny part is if you go back and look at the original Rollmaster books, yes, there's a lot of tables and referencing, but they're out and out small
Mm.
compared to books now.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Daggerheart book that published is 130 pages more than the Rollmaster book was originally, something like that. Okay. And that's the
Yeah.
simplified game. So I'm just saying, like, don't necessarily equate page count. It's also like the feel of you have to reference a bunch of tables and stuff. But I just think that's a funny reference point.
Interesting.
So the market seems to be split into like two categories.
Yes.
People who want the old school feeling simplified experience.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. The
And people who want
nostalgia. Right.
Sure. Like they like the feel, the vibe of that time, of like what that represents. And there is a bit, it's certainly grittier.
Yes.
Right.
It is.
So
very
like
much
like you can just die and you have henchmen and like it still has a lot of elements of like it's meant to be happening in a real place, not really abstracted in that way. The rulings are just the rules are simplified, but the setting is gritty and real.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So simplified realism on one side, or simplified abstractionism and sort of gameism on the other side.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
you're neither of those, is what you're saying.
And I'm neither of those.
Okay.
Yes. No, like second edition where it was like, no, let's just map out 1,000 options. Okay. And write everything down and print 1,000 books. Let's print ourselves into bankruptcy. Right. And like, I'll give you an easy example. We were playing a 5th edition game. And this is like the last campaign we played before I took over. And we ended up on the negative energy plane.
Okay.
And the question became, what happens to you when you're on the negative energy plane? It's a bad place. It kills you. You know that.
I assume it's the same as if you were to sit into a microwave and turn the microwave on, right? Same
right.
thing.
Like it's got to be bad, but what specifically is happening? And like when I looked up the negative energy plane in the 5th edition book, nothing. Right? Didn't have specific rules for what was happening. Now the DM could just educate something, but I was curious. How fast are you dying? Right? Like it just says like it's deadly and it kills things that are alive and not undead and stuff like that. I was like, okay.
How very new D&D to describe things. There's no crunch to it at all.
Right.
Yeah.
So I went back and grabbed my 2nd edition box set that had the planar descriptions in it. Right.
Uh-huh.
And I flipped to the negative energy plane and it was like each round, this is what happens. This is how much damage you take. And I was like, boom, that's what I'm talking about. There was an answer. Right. Now, again, I could have educated it. It's not a problem. The GM could have educated it. We and we did. You don't have to stop the game.
No.
I just was curious. I think it's emblematic of the 2 editions. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like if a place is real, then it has definition to it. And it doesn't have to be rules. What I mean by that is when I'm reading in an old school book about a city or a place or a country or whatever, it's giving me details like these are all the NPCs that live there. This is the buildings. This is the names of the shops. This is like it gives you this place. It's a real place.
It tells you like the chief export and like things like that, like these real economy-based real world things that matter for it existing in the world. Yes.
What does it trade? Why does it exist in this place? When was it found? Who are the prominent people? What are the prominent businesses and places, right? It doesn't define every house and building.
No.
But it makes it feel like a real place, right?
Yeah.
Just like the city you live in, some of the prominent places and people and stuff like that.
Right. What are the historical factions or historical businesses, or what founders, and what type of government does it have, and where it's its chief water supply, and all like There's a lot of things that like they have to be grounded very, very much in a real world.
Yes.
And I really struggle with it. Really feels like modern D&D, and not for us to go down this curmudgeon road, is that if a thing is codified, then that means it is scripture. So they specifically, I feel, are afraid to codify things because they're trying to make the game easy mode, and that way you feel like you have to utilize all those rules as written, as
Right.
opposed to beg, borrowing, and being influenced and inspired by what it's given and use to your advantage what you like, tweak what you like, but you have
Correct.
a
I can always say, well, no, that ruler died, a new person's in charge, and so on and so forth. Yes.
but you have a pillar to be
Yes.
founded on. There's no
Right.
pillar now. It is just like two fluffy paragraphs.
Yeah.
I'm like, none of this helps me at all. Okay. Right. Because when the PCs interact, when the PCs feel the place in the real world, they don't feel anything unless I've got to make it all up myself, because all this was is two fluffy paragraphs. And I'm like, oh, give me
Right.
something to build off of.
Yep.
And that's a real struggle I
And
find
like
with.
the only NPCs that you'll tend to get very much defined are the ones that are like directly involved in the adventure. And I'm like, well,
Absolutely.
no. I need lots of other people. There's lots of other people in the city who the PCs might end up interacting with, or I could throw in their way or do something interesting with. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like that. And so I find myself in a weird space where I'm in a sort of ground that I'm not sure that honestly, like, has very much like quote unquote market support in the current world as it exists with RPG enthusiasts. Right.
You know, it sounds like to me, Vince. Sounds like me. You're ready for Sword World.
I mean, probably. Like again, from what I know, yeah, I think probably. I think it's probably closer to the right direction. That's what I'll say. Maybe they're like the thing. I know I saw today, I need to look into it more, but I saw today on Twitter somebody did a full rewrite of second edition, like a full rewrite, and they have it out there on some kind of open game license. It's like a 600-page book.
Yes, that's what I want.
And I was like, okay, you have my attention.
And if it's just transcribed, that means they don't have all the art in it either. It's 600
No.
pages.
It's not a transcription. Like this person actually did a bunch of work and like rewrote stuff, modernized, but like kept all the original sort of core stuff. The way they pitched it, again, I only read the tweet, but the way they pitched it was like keeping all the core stuff, but like
Okay.
laying everything out better, organizing things, like that kind of stuff.
So you could take it to Kinko's and have the whole thing bound and printed for you, and it would feel like a real book.
You can buy it's print on demand. You can buy the book. I could get that print on demand 600-page book. I am going to look into it. So you never know. But anyways, that was what occurred to me from walking around, right? Because what I saw was, and I'll use this to talk about the more modern stuff in just a moment. Obviously, like the Daggerheart booth was there, and they were hopping the whole time. That's clear. But also Shadowdark, by the by, like the Shadowdark booth was there, and there was always people around that. They had all their new stuff, including their new like Solo Dark thing or whatever it's called, which was cool.
All that's still coming in my Kickstarter, so I'm waiting with bated breath.
There you go.
Yeah.
And so like I think it's a very healthy market right now, which is great. What we're seeing is a lot of new entrants, as you just mentioned. This is very positive to me.
Right.
That means there's like a lot of games for people to play and discover and check out. I am thumbs up on that. I think we're in one of the better ages of role playing that we've been in a long time. And oftentimes the statement was, as D&D went, so went the rest of the market. I think that's broken now.
Yeah.
I think D&D is a little bit like, usually when D&D was on the rise, the whole RPG market would come up to meet it.
Yep.
Right. Now I think it's kind of inverting to some degree, to your point.
Right? Yeah. I think when it's like the water level was raised enough by these third-party companies being able to jump on the D20 system originally.
Yeah.
Right. And so you built up a market of other third-party companies where there was enough crumbs. Right. And when the stagnation point happens, now you have enough ready to strike or enough understanding within the market that there is enough of an appetite as the total pool of potential player base has grown because of the D20 system, the 5e system, that now there's on-ramps for people to jump up and, I don't want to say overtake D&D, because I don't think that will probably ever happen, but there's enough of an appetite in a market for innovative, successful opportunities. And that's just it. It's all about innovation here. And this, I feel like we're in the age of innovation in RPGs. And I'm just like, I'm all for it. And I want to support them, and I want to try more things. And I like all these different categories that you mentioned, from old school, pretty loosey goosey to brand new school D&D 24 loosey goosey, and everything in the middle of the spectrum. I think there are versions of everywhere across the rainbow there that have an amazing system that are fun to play. And just finding and testing what really appeals to you and your group is like, that's part of the fun, it's part of the excitement.
Yes.
Of trying things out. And then you can beg, borrow, and steal of like, it was like, they had this really amazing like bond or kinship system over here.
Yep.
Let's use that in our game. It's an easy fold in, that kind of thing is great. So
absolutely. And like, as proof of that, I mentioned him earlier. I want to come back to him. That's Free League, right? So Free League is like a sort of publisher or whatever that wraps together stuff from a bunch of different writers and different people. And so they have a lot of different RPGs that I think are pretty cool. Tales from the Loop is one of them that I'm like vaguely familiar with. That I thought was a really neat, interesting system. But they also are the people who made the new Lord of the Rings stuff we're talking about, right? So again, Lord of the Rings has like the One Ring game, and then it has like the 5e version of the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Which I did stop and look at the One Ring thing as well, and went in and did that deep dive on that, including the new starter. We talked about that in the news on a previous show, and it looked really good. It's just like I'm not interested myself in playing in the Lord of the Rings world. And
I find it really hard to find a story that you could tell that doesn't either just feel like you're piggybacking or isn't as epic as the stories we could read in the books,
Sure. I mean, like, that sets the tone. I mean, look, I played the Lord of the Rings online MMO for years and years and years, and loved it. I had like a bunch of very, very, very high level characters, and that game did a great job of interweaving you with the Fellowship in really interesting ways and making it sort of feel like you were there the whole time. Just in the movies, you had been slightly off camera in a couple scenes. Like if they had pulled back, they would have seen my little hobbit bouncing around, somewhere. Without ever making it feel like it was silly that they didn't do it in like silly ways. It felt pretty organic. They did a nice job. But anyways, like one of my favorite moments is when you're heading up to Moria and you find Bill the Pony. He's just kind of wandering around outside. And you help him and make sure he gets on his way because they had to let him go, right? And he gets himself into trouble pretty quick, but then you save him and get him. And I was like, what a nice little pickup, right? That's a fun little moment.
Because we never know what Bill's story was when he wasn't there, and sure enough.
So they did a good job of just like weaving you through those various things.
Very cool.
At any rate, I think there is probably stories to tell in the same way that like. It's kind of like telling a story in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, I don't like that either, but sure.
I know. It's not really my thing either. I agree. Neither of these appeal to me too greatly, but there are stories that can be told. It's just not probably a story I care to be. Like The Mandalorian showed you could tell a really interesting story in the Star Wars universe that doesn't really have anything to do with the core stuff, right?
Right, yeah.
At any rate, Free League, to return back to them, in addition to the One Ring stuff, they're doing the Twilight Sword, as I mentioned, which was originally like an Italian game. So even though it looks very anime and sort of Eastern, but it's not. And just like you look at all the games that they had on offer, I looked through a bunch of their different games. They're just like so creative and colorful. The art for everyone, they don't have like a house style, which I really appreciated, right? Like the art for each game felt very that game. Does that make sense? Like very different art direction, very different styles. I thought they did such a great job at like making each book feel good. Their various and different systems are all, again, there's no like house system. They're getting this, they're publishing these from completely different writers, completely different stories and goals and stuff like that. I thought they just did a really nice job. They feel like one of the companies that's really pushing innovation in a big way. Okay. As far as in the RPG space. I also did stop by Renegade Games booth since we talked about them and I wasn't really familiar with them. And I did look at some of the, even though, again, these are not like IPs I'd want to play in, although I thank you to our commenter who talked about having a lot of fun in like the Power Rangers game and stuff like that. I did look at some of those. They seem like very well made and designed books. So I do agree with our commenter.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that we mentioned that in today's episode to thank the Gazeboids that we had a number of comments, but one was a really nice, well thought out comment about their time in the Renegade systems. And it was very reassuring to me. It was like that it's very much keeping true to the feel of that universe,
Right.
which makes me even more excited for the Dungeon Crawler Carl game. Is how that's going to implement that, because there is just a wide amount of stuff to pull from in that series of books that like they're putting it up on a silver platter for them to knock it out of the park. So let's hope that they can see that through.
Yeah, I agree. So I guess my summary of my time at Gen Con is, one, I got a lot of new things I'm excited for, both in games I know and games I don't know. Like that Blue Rose thing really pulled me in. Like I read through, I spent so much time in the hall talking to different people who are publishing RPGs, reading through their books, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just like trying to find something. And ultimately, that's the one that grabbed me the most. Probably because that flavor just really, it really gets
Sure.
me. I've just always been a Celtic mythology fan.
Yeah.
You start talking to me about like old Irish myth or like Arthurian legend, that kind of thing. I'm like, yeah, I'm in, man. Let's go. Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool stuff.
Yeah.
And but what I saw was a lot of games that were really interesting. Like one of my buddies picked up a small little role playing game called Heckin' Good Doggos. It's all about role playing different dogs. Like you're a little pack of dogs. It's like a nice little, very brightly colored game that for him and like his kid and stuff like that, right? And I was like, what a nice little pickup. So from like the very deeply indie to the larger companies, I just think it's like probably the best time in a long time for RPGs, and I like where it's going. I'm just sad that I think my tastes and like what I'm looking for isn't what the rest of the market is looking for. And so like despite all this, like I can go pick up some of these games and have fun with them intermittently. But what I'm looking for in like my core D&D experience, right? Like if my weekly D&D game, as it were, is just not going to be served by what's out there right now. Probably.
You need to be able to hold an encyclopedia's worth of knowledge, the World Book Encyclopedia's old school worth of knowledge in your head to be able to reference or to reference via the books at any time.
Yes, I like complicated spells and systems and things like that. Like, yeah, I know. Like, I don't want the math to be egregious. I don't want to go back to Rollmaster and like have to reference 1,000 tables. I don't think that is actually the smart play. Like, I do appreciate when mechanics are emergent and sort of obvious, even if there are subsystems. We're gonna have to do a future topic, John, because one of the biggest conversation points that came up between me and one of my other buddies who was there with me at Gen Con was the push toward singular resolution mechanics. Okay. The bright dividing line between second edition and third edition D&D is moving to a singular resolution mechanic. Okay.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
I sure can.
2 minutes
yes.
or less.
How do you make a skill check in D&D 3.0?
You determine what skill you can use. You roll a d20, you add your modifier, and it determines on the table based on its difficulty and your level if it's a success or a failure. It's either a 1 or a 0. You succeed or you fail.
Great, cool. How do you make a saving throw in D&D 3.0?
It has a number that you need to hit. You roll with your modifier. Do you meet or exceed that number? You succeed. If not, you fail. Sometimes there's a save for half.
You're rolling a d20 in all these cases, but yes, just to be clear.
Yes.
How do you make an attack roll? Same thing. Okay, we get it.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. How do you do it in second edition? Well, you make an attack roll in second edition by rolling a d20 and adding your bonuses, but you're comparing to THAC0, right? Like you have to, like your THAC0 minus their AC set your target number. So it's a roll over still, right? But there, okay. How do you make an ability check? Well, you roll under your ability score. So you're rolling a d20 and now you're trying to roll low, right? You make a saving throw by rolling a d20 and trying to get over a completely arbitrary table's number settings based on the type of character you are, i.e. like warrior, wizard, so on and so forth, or warrior mage, so on and so forth. Yeah? Okay.
Right.
And you make a non-weapon proficiency check, like a skill check, ostensibly, by making an ability check, rolling under your stat. But if you're a rogue or a ranger with hide, move silently, or a bard or something like that, then you're making a percentile rolls check, right? And if you're going to engage in some unarmed combat, well, that's totally different again. You're going to use a couple of, you're going to roll in like a table and basically like what kind of unarmed moves are you attempting and so on and so forth, right?
Yeah. The weaving in of the double O's and you rolling percentiles for a variety of things in second edition was a whole nother thing too. I think
So
that there's
you
a
have
deeper
very discrete resolution mechanics is my point, right? And each one lives in its own little world and is not very interacted with by anything else.
Uh-huh.
So this is a whole future topic. But anyways, I realize that's a big thing, right?
It is, and that is something that we're going to have to dig in and actually also run the numbers on that of how does that statistically actually differ from the way that more recent editions run it. If the whole point is to keep the math a certain way.
Yeah, spoiler, it's a lot different mathematically.
Okay. I would assume I would assume without you premising it this way that was not the case. I would assume that they simplified because the math still all checked out once they did a combination, compared, and then made a simplified version. It was plus or minus 2 to 5% difference. Like it was
you'd be very wrong.
It was very different. But when
we're
you
talking
bring it
like massive swings.
Okay, when you bring it up this way, I know you well enough to know that you wouldn't have an issue with this unless it were a massive difference.
Right.
So that's really, really interesting. Okay, we need to make a whole topic on that because I really want to break down that. And because the only problem that I have with that is I know what it's going to do is going to make me start to see the Matrix. I'm going to be ticked off that I'm running games.
Get ready. We're going to see through. But to close us out here in summary, Gen Con was a great time. I am very excited for all the new RPGs that are out there. I will be picking up that Phantasy Star RPG when it eventually comes out. That's going to be just for me. I've already. By the way, I did stop and hear a couple sci-fi games pitches, and it immediately put me in mind of our weird species episode, right? Because and the fantasy bias. Because I was like, "Tell me about your game." I did the standard thing, right? I'm like flipping through the book while the dude told me about his game. And he's like, "Oh, yes, it's great. You can play all these weird alien races." And I was like, "I bet you can. Tell me about your weird alien races. I'm excited."
All right, it's a space manatee. But the thing about the space manatee is that you can only go on water planets. Otherwise, you have to be in this silly astronaut suit the entire time. I'm like,
yeah. So, and like immediately I loved it, right? Because yes, this the whole exception of where like sci-fi games can just be whatever nonsense. Right.
I just picture in my head you airdropping him that episode of our podcast and then just saying nothing.
Right.
Oh man, that's freaking great. Well, I know I did not expect to go into this episode being more pumped for a game that I never knew existed than I am about Sword World, and I already have multiple tabs open in my other monitor about this
dude,
game.
I'm telling you, you can find. So, I'll hit you with the English translation now if you want it. It's
okay.
not it's not. We'll get a much better version, obviously, when it comes out. But yeah.
Obviously, if you are so excited by something that you are doing pre-research on something that's not even the thing that you're excited about, that you know that like you've struck some kind of ore in your mining there. So I'm all for that. I would love the Gazeboids to tell us if any of you went to Gen Con this year. I want to hear what was your biggest takeaway or your most exciting thing in relates to RPGs, or it could be anything else really, or any panel you went to or anything like that. If you didn't go, are there any of the games that we talked about today that excite you? And have you done any research or anything you're really excited about? Or is there any game that Vince did not cover today that you are really pumped about, whether you saw it at Gen Con or just something new that you've tried out or excited to try? The more that we read your comments and learn about other games. If anyone
has a second edition type of game that they think actually mimics that period of D&D, why don't you tell me about that down in the comments?
I can almost guarantee you're going to get a recommendation or two in our comments, and I love it. So we'll have to check those out. And we're going to be back again next week with another new episode now that Vince is off with all of his soirees before he and I head over to Nova at the end of the month, and then we'll find maybe a fun thing that we can do around Nova where we're actually going to be together for 4 straight days, so that's going to be fun. But we appreciate you, Gazeboids, and we'll catch you next time.